All right, we're going. Good evening and welcome to tonight's Peoria mayoral debate. Thanks to each of you for attending this evening. Thank you to Arizona Broadway Theater for having us. And thank you to the candidates, Bridget Binsbacher and Jason Beck, for participating. Ahead of tonight, I found myself thinking about and going back to reread a speech from more than a century ago by Teddy Roosevelt. In part of the speech, he pushes back against cynics who look down on or criticize those who put themselves out there in pursuit of a good cause. The role of critics, he says, is easy. The more difficult task, and where the credit should go, is those who are, quote, actually in the arena, who put themselves out there, who get on the stage, who sometimes succeed and sometimes fall short, but who dare greatly, so that their place, quote, shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Running for public office isn't easy. Answering questions and debating ideas isn't always easy, but it's important. So it is with my sincerest thanks to the candidates for being here tonight, and if we could give them a round of applause. So I'm Carrie Waters. I'm the city editor for the Arizona Republic. I'm also a West Valley resident and have family and grandchildren here in Peoria. Years ago in another career life, I was also a high school government teacher. Perhaps because of that, I've always respected that informed citizens are critical to our form of government. This made me especially committed to holding tonight's debate. It's an important time for Peoria, as voters will choose the first new mayor in 8 years. I hope you all gain insights here from being here, that you can listen to an exchange of ideas between Jason and Bridget and size up the candidates, as each voter must ahead of Election Day. With that said, let me review the format and rules. Some of those are for us on stage, and some of them are for you in the audience. First on my list is, if you haven't already, if you would turn off your cell phone or at least just silence the ringer. Also, I was reminded that if you're in the upper mezzanine, if you would stay seated, that would be helpful. The debate will begin with 1-minute opening statements from each candidate and then move directly into our questions. The questions come from the Republic, from readers, and guests here tonight. When you came in, you should have received a note card and pencil to jot down questions. I just ask that you please write as large and legibly as possible, preferably one question per card, but I will try to manage if you did otherwise, and there's no need to put your name on it. We have 2 Republic reporters stationed in the room. We have Alexandra in the back there, and Maritza right here. They will be watching throughout the debate. If you have a question that comes to you throughout the evening, just lift your card up and they'll be watching for that and collect it and get it up my way. Candidates will have 1 minute to respond to questions, 1 minute to respond to questions, with 30 seconds for rebuttals as needed. The Republic also may ask follow-up questions. I should note that I'm joined on stage on the far side there by reporter Taylor Seeley, who will ask the questions that came from Arizona Republic AZ Central readers. We will get through as many questions as we can in the next hour. While you may have joined us this evening with a good idea of which way you lean, I ask that you avoid applause, cheers, boos, or anything else that takes time away from the candidates and distracts from our goal of allowing Peoria voters to hear from the 2 candidates running to be their mayor. With that, let's begin. And we decided by coin toss that we would open with Bridget. You have 1 minute for your introduction.
Pledge of allegiance first.
Yeah.
Happy to do that. Let's do the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. And before my time starts, I just want to thank the Arizona Broadway Theater, this amazing theater here in Peoria, for hosting us. Yay! And the Arizona Republic for hosting the event, is sponsoring the event, and for moderating the event, and giving us this opportunity to give all of the citizens that are here today an inside look at the candidates. So again, my name is Bridget Bensbacher, and I am here tonight to earn your trust, to earn your vote for Mayor of Peoria. I come from a long line of public servants and veterans. Public safety and the risks of public safety is something that my family lives every day. The safety and security of Peoria citizens is priority one for me. And I am not a career politician. I am a servant leader dedicated to leading the city into the future with a solid track record for many years. I have more than 20 years of experience in the financial industry, in commercial development, business development, mergers and acquisitions, operations. I've partnered with many businesses over the years, similar to that of my opponent, and have partnered with those owners to set those businesses up for success. I'm currently the executive director of the Cactus League Baseball Association. That's a $644 million industry. It's an economic engine annually for the state of Arizona. I've served 7 years on the Peoria City Council. I have served on many boards and committees, particularly in water management. And I am here to earn your vote. Thank you so much.
And we'll move to Jason Beck.
All right, thank you. I'm Jason Beck. I'm a Christian conservative that goes to a church right here in Peoria. I'm a husband of my beautiful wife, Jane, and a father of my 6 amazing sons. I'm a job creator and a business owner right here in the city of Peoria with over 300 employees. I love living in the city of Peoria. With all of that, you're probably wondering why I would actually run for mayor of Peoria. I'm running because countless officers of our police department have asked me to run because they have been ignored for too long. Council members have asked me to run, and numerous business owners and citizens have as well. And because as a business owner here in the city of Peoria, I understand firsthand that we do not have a pro-business culture here in the city of Peoria. I am proud of my team and the work we do to save lives on a daily basis. And recently we were awarded, for the second time in history, the Arizona Manufacturer of the Year right here in Peoria. Peoria is my home, and that's why I've chosen to run for mayor. Peoria needs an outsider and a job creator in these difficult economic times, and I'd be honored to earn your vote.
Please, if we could save applause just till the end, that would be perfect. We're going to jump right to question 1 and get through as many as possible. Let's go with the big issue right away, an issue facing Arizona in the Southwest. As Arizona sees the first cutbacks to its allocation of Colorado River water in the ongoing drought, how heavily would you scrutinize the water use of proposed new developments, especially as the city also seeks to attract employers and jobs? Apart from looking at new demands on water as the city grows, are there other next steps the city should take to conserve water? And we're going to start with you, Jason.
Perfect. So thank you for that. I actually think the city of Peoria has done an amazing job with water. We have had some amazing leaders over the period of time, both Mayor Barrett and Mayor Carla as well, that had previously worked at the CAP here in Arizona. I believe that they've made a big difference in how the city of Peoria has been set up for the future. The reality is, though, is we have technology that is coming in, and that what we need to do is focus on the actual leaders that we have in this city. The leaders that are actually, as is the director of water for our city, is a gentleman by the name of Kate Powers. What we need to do as an executive in the mayor's office and council is actually empower those executives to look for new technologies for the future, and actually paying attention to how we're actually going to drive forward as a city and take care of citizens and as well as our economic development.
Bridget, 1 minute.
So The mayor and council set policy for the city, so it's very important that we do work with our staff to understand that, but as a mayor and leader of this city, we need to understand the law of the river. And I've spent a lot of time understanding that and working towards that. We have made some great decisions moving forward. We need to make use of every drop of water. So we need to use less, conserve more, public education and outreach to make sure that we continue to move the city in the right direction and continue to be prepared for the future and have the water that we need. We're in a great position, but we need to manage carefully moving forward and continue to work regionally with our partners to ensure that we are good stewards of the resource and protecting Peoria's water rights and doing everything we can to ensure that the supply is there for our citizens and for our future businesses.
If I could just do a follow-up question with both of you, and I'll go first with you, Jason. So you have a business coming into Peoria. Will you look at the water use and if it's intensive?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't let you finish that. What was the last part of that?
Will you question if it's an intensive water use or stop?
I think that we have to look at what TSMC is actually doing and actually looking for companies that are actually going to focus on water uses and actually how they're actually going to purify their own water. As an example, you take Intel as an example, as well as TSMC, has the cleanest water and best use of water of all companies that are actually in the state. And we need to look and recruit companies that are like that.
Great. 30 seconds.
So yes, TSMC is reusing a big portion of their water. And so as we bring in new businesses, that's going to be part of the decision as we move forward. We have enough water to use, never enough water to waste, and we want to align with businesses that are conscious of the precious resource and managing properly. And that will become part of our policies moving forward, and that's something that I would like to impose as we move forward, certain requirements for water use so that we continue to make smart decisions moving forward.
As I mentioned, I'm a former teacher, so an education question seems like the right way to go. In Peoria, there are two primary local governments. There's the city and there's the school district. Each has its own elected officials, duties, and taxing power. What role, if any, should the mayor and council play in the school district, and vice versa? What role should the school board play in the city? And we're going to kick that off with Bridget.
So relationships are everything, and as leaders in anything, we're successful as the relationships that we form. So we need to look at, obviously we have a constitution in place that defines the legal taxing authorities and what our roles are as leaders. We need to continue to work together to share resources. We need to continue to look at partnerships with higher education, potential co-locations, and we're having those conversations now. We have great relationships with ASU, with charter schools, certainly with PUSD, which is one of our largest districts, one of 4 districts in the city of Peoria, and continue to share resources, continue to refer developers to the schools so that they can come to terms and help support education as they develop. This is an ongoing effort, and we need to basically be here to do our jobs in leading the city and leading the school district, but we will be as successful as the relationships that we continue to cultivate and work on.
Jason.
So I think the real question on Peoria is Peoria voters' minds, or how do we actually focus on our school's future? With PUSD has 38,000 students in our school district. We have deteriorating schools in South Peoria. We have a great need for a new high school in North Peoria. The issue is how do we actually use the position and the platform as being an executive or being mayor to where we actually build those relationships or we actually utilize those relationships. And I've already started having those conversations. I've met with state legislators. I've met with PUSD board members. I've met with the president of PUSD about this specifically. I believe that there's a path, and I believe that there's a path to negotiate with the state legislature to actually bring a high school to North Peoria, but also make sure that we actually take care of our diminished schools in South Peoria. We cannot forget where the city was built, and we need to take care of South Peoria schools just as much as we need a new high school in the North Peoria. And I think the only way to do that is actually use this platform. I've negotiated contracts with countries, with the FBI, DEA, U.S. Marshal Service. I negotiate contracts all the time. The goal is to actually bring people together to actually make a difference and actually use the platform as mayor to try to make sure that our brightest stars in the future of our city is actually taken care of, which is our children.
But I'm going to ask a follow-up, and I'm going to cater the questions to each of you, the follow-up. For Jason, in looking at your website, you've called for 2 new high schools, one in Vistancia and one that it would be a STEM school. And as I understand it, you would look to fund those by having the city buy state trust land and then asking the state land department to direct those proceeds to the school. So if you could clarify, number one, clarify if I have that right, but also considering that the distribution of money from the sale of state land is something that's prescribed in our state constitution, how could that work? And also, would those be PUSD schools?
I think the issue is really trying to focus on how you actually work with state legislators to actually make a difference where that money goes. So as we look for opportunities to actually include state trust land in our development programs for the city, we actually want to actually work with state legislators to make sure that monetary gain that the state brings back in immediately goes back into PUSD schools. The only way to do that is to actually have negotiations and relationships with the actual state legislators themselves to actually accomplish that.
Would those be PUSD schools?
Yes, they would.
Okay.
Yes.
And Bridget,
I believe in the growth. I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Good. I believe that not every child is meant for a charter school. Not every child. We have 38,000 students that are in PUSD, and we need to advance the future of PUSD.
Thank you. Bridget, I'm catering this question to you. If you want to take time, it looked like you wanted to respond to something, you can use a portion of your 1 minute to do that. But here's the question that I have for you. I would ask you to ask that you explain if you also see a role for the city to play, as certainly the Peoria Unified School District has struggled in recent years to get bonds approved that would build new schools. So is there a role for mayor to advance that issue?
Absolutely. Relationships are key, but what my opponent was talking about in negotiating deals on behalf of the school, the city is not the legal taxing authority for education. It's not legal. We can't do that, and there are 4 districts in our city. So we have to understand what our roles are. First of all, the Constitution, the Charter, which is our city's constitution, and what legal boundaries, what legal parameters we can operate in. These relationships are key. They are, but conversations are already happening with charter schools, with ASU, with PUSD. These relationships have been ongoing. I have 4 kids in the public school system. I have worked for years with PUSD and worked with Title I schools across our city. More than half of our schools are Title I schools. There are issues, no doubt about it, but we need to understand what our jobs are. This mayor's responsibility is to lead and provide core services for the city of Peoria. That's what the taxpayers are paying for through the majority of our revenue stream, which is sales tax.
Okay. Now, I would say there is an opportunity for rebuttal. So, Jason,
I appreciate that.
it's 30 seconds.
Bridget is absolutely correct. My opponent is actually correct. The legal authority is not going underneath the mayor. The platform comes underneath the mayor. The position as the executive authority for the city. That is the direction that we actually need to utilize the platform to actually help bring people together. The difference is, and I had a conversation with David Sandoval this morning, the president of PUSD. The superintendent. I apologize. The president of PUSD. As far as the school district, you start going down this path. I can have a conversation with David in 1 minute, and I can have a conversation with the state representative in another. The goal is to actually be in the position to bring them together to negotiate the deal. And that's how things get done. And that's how things get done in business.
Thank you.
And I would say to my opponent, welcome to the conversation, because it's been ongoing for many, many years.
If I would have been there earlier, it would have been solved.
There is.
Guys, I would appreciate it. No applause. It is absolutely taking away time from the many, many questions I have to ask. Bridget?
Yes, that screams, I have no experience. That's what that tells me.
Guys, please, we're just taking away time from questions, because every time you clap, I have to talk about it, so please don't. We're going to move right on to let's talk about jobs. Peoria has made strides in growing its healthcare industry, but overall, the city has few large employers. In looking at the latest available annual financial report, which is from 2021, Peoria's 10 largest employers accounted for fewer than 10,000 jobs. That's better than nearby but smaller Surprise, but it's worse than nearby but smaller Goodyear. Does that point to a weakness in Peoria's economy, and what specifically would you do as mayor to grow companies and jobs? Bridget, I will kick that off with you. 1 minute.
First of all, Peoria, can you hear me? No. Can you hear me now?
There you go. There you go.
This is a commercial. First of all, Peoria is uniquely Peoria. We don't need to compare ourselves to any other city. And we have worked to create a strategy for bringing jobs to Peoria. But it's very important that they are the right kind of jobs that meet the needs of our labor force. We're looking for high-wage jobs, head of household jobs. And so we need to create a welcoming environment for different industries. We need to look at the opportunities, like previously mentioned with TSMC, and continue to work those relationships to bring the right kind of employment. We have preserved certain areas just for that, to meet the needs of our citizens. And it is a very strategic process. We can open the doors to anything, anytime. That's easy. And then you end up with drive-thrus and chains and all of the things that people don't want. We need to do the right thing and bring the right types of jobs to meet and match the labor force that we have in Peoria. The standards are very, very high, and it's a strategy, a very focused strategy.
Jason.
I would actually say there's no strategy at all. I think the most common thing that I talk to business owners, the most common thing whenever I've met with defense industry professionals in Huntsville, Alabama as an example. The reason they go to Huntsville, Alabama is because they have what's called investor confidence. They do not have investor confidence in the city of Peoria. Peoria has a very broken system when it comes to recruiting and retaining employers here in the city of Peoria. I know this firsthand. I have 320 employees in the city of Peoria. I'm the largest privately held employer in the city of Peoria. It is a very difficult process to build and construct a building in the city, to go through the entire process. I'm not talking about developers. I'm talking about the city process itself. If you want people to actually invest their money in the city of Peoria and bring good jobs to the city of Peoria, you have to get out of their way and work with them to actually find solutions. We don't do that.
Okay, thank you. Nearly a dozen.
Can I
I'm sorry.
respond to that?
Yes, you can.
Okay,
30
so the
seconds.
process, we can work on it. There's issues with the process, we can work on the process. Anyone can build a building. What we need to do is understand the culture and what the needs are and what is going to meet the needs and contribute to the culture in the city of Peoria. And that is a very specific kind of job. It's a very specific kind of industry to meet the response and meet the needs of the labor force that we currently have in place.
Man? Like what? No, don't ask.
Please.
May I respond?
Yes.
All right. So the issue there is we have to actually have people in the higher levels of office that actually understand what it takes to actually bring businesses to the city of Peoria. This is one of the issues that we most commonly have because 85% of our citizens leave this city to go work outside somewhere else. We want people to live in this city, work in this city, so where they can actually spend more time with their families and spend more money in this city. That's how you actually provide investor confidence. We have to actually know that we're going to get out of their way and bring jobs to the city and retain people here.
Thank you.
Investor confidence comes from having a cohesive
Bridget, we're going to move on.
leadership.
Thank you. Nearly a dozen years ago, there was talk in the city of building an airport in North Peoria. Luke Air Force Base had raised some concerns, and the plans just didn't go further. As the idea of an airport comes up again, I wonder, is it time for the city to pursue an airport? And how would that be different than it was 10, 11, maybe 12 years ago, before in connection with Luke and their airspace? And we'll start with you, Jason.
Okay, thank you. So the airport is one idea of a large economic engine for the city of Peoria. With TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Factory, and there's 24,000 employees, that's one aspect. Within 10 square miles of TSMC is going to be 125,000 jobs within that area. The airport location that we currently have, that has just been taken back by the state land, has been there for years with a 3,500-foot runway. What we need to do is we actually need to look at how we're actually developing an air park, just like Scottsdale Air Park, with its $10 billion of economic impact, the city of Scottsdale, and its 55,000 jobs, and more importantly, $37 million of direct taxes back to the city of Scottsdale. We just need a small portion of that for the city of Peoria. And why? Because our goal is to try to bring 15,000 to 20,000 jobs to North Peoria and create an economic corridor in North Peoria that services those areas. The way we do that, the diamond, is the airport. And that's how we actually bring those jobs here. That's how you provide investor confidence.
Very good, Bridget.
So, so Scottsdale Air Park is an anomaly. It's a wonderful development. That airport was built 80 years ago. It's on nearly 3,000 acres. That glider school is less than 200 acres. The topography there makes it very difficult. Not necessarily impossible, but very, very difficult. That airport in Scottsdale, again, almost 80 years old, before homes, before businesses. The air park is totally separate than the operation at the airport itself. The saying in the airport industry is spend $1 billion, earn $1 million. It takes time. So let's plan for the future, but it also is a direct hit on your quality of life, on your home values. We have 30,000 homes in that area.
Thank you.
And those planes are going to fly directly over those houses.
Joe, can I rebut that?
Yeah.
So it's interesting how my opponent was all for this idea when she thought she was going to get revenue from it, when she thought she was going to get an endorsement for it. She's met with 2 different developers specifically around this and said that to both of them that she was all for this idea. The reality is we already have airplanes that fly over our city, right? We have F-35s. The airport location is 4.5 miles from any residence area. The economic corridor is the future of our city. It truly, truly is. The only way to bring jobs here are to actually make sure that we have something that attracts them throughout the city itself. We have to have something that does that. An air park, again, is one idea to actually do that.
Bridget, you also have 30 seconds.
So again, I'm not against an airport, but the model that my opponent is talking about is not realistic based on where we are today. And if TSMC wants an airport, they're going to want to get to Taiwan. What kind of plane do you think that's going to be? How's that going to feel?
Gulfstream 4, 5, 6, RA 900E is what they fly.
Luke Air Force Base is in control of that airspace. That is a whole other conversation and a relationship that needs to happen that we already have in place in Peoria. So there could be opportunity there, but that particular model, not going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
May I read about that?
No, you may not.
No.
We're going to move over to Taylor for a question from a reader.
We've got a lot of questions. All right. North Peoria's population is exploding. What will you do in short order to ensure infrastructure, especially roads, are able to handle the influx of thousands more people? Oh, sorry. We go to Bridget.
Yeah, we go to Bridget.
So, we have different funding mechanisms that we've had based on relationships that we have at the state and county level. We've been able to widen Happy Valley Road, bring in the bridge, Joe Max interchange. The interior roads associated with the developments come in partnership with the developers. And so we work in cooperation with them so that they can build those roads and fund those roads so it's not all in the city. So that is something that we have to continue to work as we go. As the development comes, the roads come in to meet the needs. We are constantly looking at traffic patterns, volume of traffic, and identifying where we need to add traffic signals and different things to technology, whatever it is, to be able to accommodate the growth and continue to move people from one end of the city safely. And I think we've done a really good job of that in Peoria.
Jason, 1 minute.
So I think a part of the answer is honestly, again, having great relationships with the state legislators, working with our congresswoman. I've had those conversations specifically about traffic flow, the expansion of Highway 74, and really looking at what the future growth of North Peoria is. Right now, I would say that anybody that's driven Highway 74 thinks of it as an old country road, right? And what we really need to turn Highway 74 into is essentially the 303. We need to actually be having those conversations today, which I already have, because our goal for North Peoria needs to be in front of us, and we need to actually make sure that we have the infrastructure there to accomplish those things. We have to be thoughtful in our actions to do that. We do have road bonds to maintain our roads, but and developers are actually bringing those roads in and arterial roads in. But what we need to be doing is working with state legislators as well as Congress people to actually focus on the future of our city.
So I sat on MAG's Transportation Committee and worked with a regional transportation plan and talked about all of these different projects critical to all of our cities on a regional level. These conversations are happening on a regular basis. Peoria has a seat at the table and a voice in these discussions like never before. We've been able to pull our fair share of funding to leverage dollars that we have to invest in roads to accommodate the growth and plan for the future. Peoria is a city that plans. We do it with infrastructure. We do it with roads, with water lines. We have done a great job of planning for the future and making sure that we have the proper infrastructure in place. And the relationships at the state level, it isn't all about the relationship with other politicians. We have a responsibility to serve the citizens and the needs of our city. And we need to make sure that we have somebody there that understands those needs and is fighting for them on a regular basis.
We're going to take it to an audience question. Cities primarily in the East Valley, Chandler, Gilbert, have experienced tremendous commercial growth. Why do you think Peoria has failed to do the same? And we're going to start with Jason on that one.
Investor confidence. I'm going to keep saying that. The issue that we have with commercial growth, and I'm building my third commercial building, and I have to say something my opponent said earlier. Not anybody can build a building. I started my business in a 10 by 30 storage unit and 3 sewing machines and a generator. Not anybody can actually build a building and just come up with something. It takes time, it takes determination, and the issue is you have to have respect as a city to actually understand what that developer is actually going through. Right now, we don't have that. The East Valley has had a very, very strong coalition of cities. If you talk to the mayor of Surprise, Skip Hall, you talk to the mayor of Glendale, Jerry Wires, they would say the exact same thing. I've been endorsed by both. The city of Peoria works with neither. The problem is we actually need to have better working relationships when it comes to that, so we can actually look at future commercial developments for the city of Peoria and actually attract people to be here and retain them here.
That is absolutely false. We have had, right now, our leadership in the West Valley is stronger than it has ever been. We are working with them on a regular basis, celebrating successes. And again, we're not Surprise and we're not Glendale, nor do we want to be. We want to build Peoria. And for those of you that don't know, we have more than half of our city that is undeveloped. So we've got one chance to get this right. And it isn't about, copying what another city is doing. It is about understanding the culture that we want to develop here for our families and keeping multiple generations here together where they can live and work and have social and entertainment experiences right here in their backyard. That doesn't just happen, and I'd rather do nothing than the wrong thing.
Yeah, take notice. We do the wrong thing a lot. That's the problem with the city of Peoria.
That's not true.
It is true. And the problem is that we lose opportunities because we have bad relationships with the actual executive management of those other cities. We do not work directly together with them. Why would either mayor endorse me as a candidate for the city that's their neighboring city? And the reason why is because they want a partner that's actually going to work with them to actually attract businesses, because we need a strong coalition, just like you mentioned in the East Valley. We do not have that in the West Valley here in these 3 cities.
That's not true. And you have
Are we rebutting afterwards?
I believe that was the rebuttal.
Mine was a rebuttal.
2 mayors endorsing. I have over a dozen. The relationships go on, and it takes time to build those relationships, and I put that time in. And to say investor confidence, part of what establishes investor confidence is solid working relationships and a cohesive mayor and council. The leadership style of my opponent is to break it down, to pit one against the other, one part of the council against the other, one department against the other. That's not the culture that we want in our city.
That's not true.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next question, and please, guys, I appreciate the forum. A reader
Can
did
I say something real quick?
Jason,
It's not a rebuttal.
If you want to take time,
I'm asking. I'll take my time.
No,
I'm asking the crowd
Jason,
to
please.
respect her in what her responses are. So just because
Thank you,
you may have
Jason. We're
disagreement.
going to move on to the next question.
Please.
I was reminded by a reader in the crowd that we're talking a lot about North Peoria, and Peoria is this very long city, and where's our historic south side? So let's talk about South Peoria. I'm kind of combining two questions here. A reader asked, an audience member asked, can you address the needs and differences between North and South? And then another was just more directive, what are you doing down South? And we're going to start with you, Bridget.
So what we've done down south since the time that I've been on the council is, first of all, we're one Peoria, from one end to the other, and I have served all areas of our city for many, many years. There's rich culture and history in our city, and if you have been down there at all, the arts, the activities, the events, it's unbelievable. Centennial Plaza, it's wonderful. And the partnership that we have with the school district to bring families from all over the city down there is unbelievable. We have acquired parcels throughout Old Town Peoria, and we've purchased them and completely, revamped them so that they are presentable and they're show ready. And we've been able to bring events there to utilize those spaces, and it's marketable. It's marketable today like it's never been before. And you can start to feel how it's coming together when you're there for special events, when you're there at some of the businesses that already exist in Old Town Peoria. And we want to continue to invest and engage the citizens in creating that culture.
Jason?
So, of course, I would disagree with that. The first thing we need to think about is Peoria has been built on the backs of South Peoria. You guys have to remember that. The issue is, in my view, it's shameful how the city has not taken care of the parks. We have bathrooms that are closed, trees that are not trimmed, roadways that are not taken care of. We are not sale ready in downtown Peoria, and that's why people aren't coming in to actually spend their money. We talk about investor confidence. No investor wants to come in and actually buy a lower end product because we don't have it. We don't present South Peoria in the same way we present North Peoria. And the people in South Peoria deserve better, in all honesty. Yes. Right? We deserve better parks, please. We deserve better parks. We deserve better roadways. The people that are in South Peoria is what we actually need to think about how we're actually going to create their future, not just what their past was. We need to take care of them. We need to make sure that we don't gentrify the community. That's a very important term. We bring high-end apartments in. We're talking about bringing 1,700 apartments into an area of downtown Peoria. What do you think that's going to do to downtown Peoria? It's going to devastate it. Off a roadway where we have higher crime and higher drugs. We need to be thoughtful in our
Downtown Peoria is absolutely beautiful, and it has tremendous potential, and some great things have already happened. There's just so much opportunity. But our beautiful Peoria, Pioneer Park, Rio Vista Park, Centennial Plaza, what's happening out at Osuna Park. I mean, those are investments we made over the course of many years. And I have ridden in the southern part of the city. I've ridden in the northern part of the city. I've done it with PD and have seen firsthand those areas and those communities. The revitalization is unbelievable.
So I would tell you that there's Peoria citizens and lots of Peoria citizens that are in here, and there's a lot of them from South Peoria, and they disagree. They disagree with the roads being maintained, the investments that are actually done. We've had a council member that's actually in South Peoria say that everything is the same in South Peoria as it is in North Peoria. It's shameful of how we actually take care of it. We need to do better for our citizens, and I will, as mayor.
You have to remember.
We're going to kick it over to the next question to Taylor, a short-term rental question.
Okay. All right, short-term rentals have negatively impacted many Peoria neighborhoods. Residents, through no fault of their own, have experienced a substantial reduction in quality of life due to this situation. As the state has relinquished some control back to local governments, what action would you take to rein in short-term rentals and to restore the family-oriented aspect of our communities as called out in our residential zoning rules?
Jason, we start that with you.
So I look at short-term rentals as a revenue opportunity for the city. I don't believe that we should just leave it as it is. I think we actually need to look at how we would actually regulate it for the future of our city. If we are going to have short-term rentals in specific areas of our city, we need to make sure that we actually regulate that and receive a tax. Citizens should actually be paid where we're actually putting money back in the coffers of citizens to maintain our city itself. What happens is we ignore it. We just let it happen. And we can't do that any longer, right? It's becoming a developing industry, specifically. We've all probably rented different properties all over this country. I know I have. And the issue is if you go to areas like in Colorado or if you go to areas in Virginia, there's taxes that are actually paid back to the city and back to the state that actually comes in. And that's what we need to be thinking about.
Bridget.
Those are business opportunities, no doubt about it, and revenue opportunities. They are not being ignored. I have responded to many of those inquiries in neighborhoods and been very sensitive to the quality of life. It is definitely different in areas where there are homeowners associations. So those regulations are able to be more strict and specific to those communities. And that creates a lot of controls in those communities. As we get into other areas, which tends to be in the southern part of the city, where there aren't master planned communities, there aren't HOAs, that's where we have to pay special attention to those communities and make sure that they're protected. We do not want these business opportunities to impact the quality of of life for those citizens. And there needs to be regulations on that, but it is not being ignored. It's something that we have addressed regularly since it became a thing.
I'm going to ask a follow-up question on that, just to make sure I feel like the reader's question was more about, man, this is a nuisance in my neighborhood, I've got traffic. And the thing about short-term rentals is, I believe in 2016, the state legislature really took away cities' ability to regulate them almost entirely. And since that time, cities have fought back and gained some, including just this past legislative session. So a question for each of you as a follow-up, and I guess we'll start we would start with you, Bridget. I mean, does the city, there's not much a city can do, but there are some new things. Does the city do anything to regulate short-term rentals, nuisance properties?
So again, my district was in the Mesquite district, so many years what we were working with was the HOAs, and the HOAs were able to regulate a lot of that. This is an example of a challenge, though, when you're working with state legislatures. And again, they're many times focused on conversations with each other and more removed from the citizens. So we as leaders, as a mayor and council, need to understand the needs in our city, the challenges in our cities, and fight for controls in our cities to be able to impose policies that protect our citizens. We don't need state legislators coming in and telling us how to protect our citizens. We need to fight for that control. And it's not just happening in this area, it's happening in other areas. And we need to. The relationships are important, but our job ultimately is to serve the citizens that elected us to represent them. And we need to be loud voices for them.
Jason, city regulation on these, does it exist? Should it exist?
I think it should exist, and I think there's areas when it comes to public safety that we should actually be focused on specifically. With short-term rental properties, knowing who is actually going to be in and out of those properties, I think is extremely important. Because if with the rise in crime, of fentanyl coming into our state and across our borders, we need to make sure that we're not having trafficking situations happening throughout our city. Those are opportunities to where we can actually work with local law enforcement. We can actually work with actual fire, so we actually know who is actually in that. I think the issue of trying to register who that homeowner is and then being able to have emergency contacts with whoever that person is if there's a fire or if there's an emergency, I think it's extremely important for our public safety officials to be able to make contact with them. And again, it goes back, I do agree with Bridget in some areas. You've got to work with state legislators to actually fight for the opportunities so we can actually provide revenue back to our city from those areas.
Thank you.
I'm almost on board, except the rise in crime, that's not accurate.
We'll get to that, I promise. Moving on to the next question. We will get there. Peoria plans to spend $19 million this year, which is about 7% of its general operating fund on parks and recreation. By comparison, neighboring Surprise spends nearly the same, with 9% of its general fund money going towards parks and rec. Is Peoria in balance, out of balance when it comes to park spending? So what would you change? Remind me, I think we're starting with Bridget.
You started with me last time.
Did I? We'll go to Jason.
Okay.
Thanks.
So, obviously quality of life to everybody is extremely important. I've got 6 kids. We love the parks that we have here. We hike on the trails that are local to us. The issue is we have to look at where our first dollar goes. We really have to look at where our priority goes. And the first dollar out of your pocket shows your city's priority. To me, we focus too much on revenue loss, as an example. If you look at some of the fields and things like that we maintain, we're actually not focusing on how we're actually driving revenue off of some of those areas. It cannot just all be out of the taxpayer pocket and constantly flow outward and not have the same types of parks in South Peoria as we do in North Peoria. Just because we have one park, Pioneer Park, which is a fantastic park, we need to make sure that we actually take care of all of our citizens and not just some of our citizens.
Thanks. Bridget.
So we have a commitment to the city, across the city, to create amazing parks and trails and connectivity. It has become part of our identity. It's what will draw businesses and investors to our city. It's amazing. We currently have 50% of our general fund going to public safety. It is a top priority, more than 54%. We have 9% going towards parks. And one should not come at the expense of the other. We are a well-run city, and we have to have a balance of amenities across the city. That includes parks, public safety, art, infrastructure. We have a capital improvement plan that is fully funded. It's a 10-year plan. There's capital projects there for police, for parks. It is ever changing. And depending on where we are in some of these projects, they move from year to year, and sometimes they're heavier in one area than another area, but this is all based on the priorities, the livability goals, and the input that we get from our citizens in each district.
Jason.
I have to disagree, obviously, on part of this. Investors don't look at our parks and say, man, I really wish we had a great park so we could actually put a business in that city. And that's the problem that we have. The culture of that thought process is indicative of how the city is actually run. We need to have a thoughtful process when it comes to taking care of all citizens. Go to any South Peoria park. Go to Barney Park. Just one park. I challenge any citizen to go and look. Look at the difference between that park and how the citizens are taken care of then and any other park in North Peoria.
Bridget?
I spent a lot of time in Barney Park
Then you should be
with
ashamed.
baseball practices, and we have amazing amenities across the city, and we have a plan to invest in the maintenance. We have converted our parks all across the city to be accessible and upgrade those parks with shade and different features and different things across the city. If there is a particular district, we're broken up into 6 districts. Each council member has a responsibility for their district. If there's a particular district that's suffering.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, I had a question from readers. I had a couple of questions from readers directed into individuals, but it's kind of it's the same question. So they want to know, for Jason, they want to know, you run this business, how are you going to do that and be our mayor? For Bridget, they want to know, you're the executive director of the Cactus League, how are you going to do that and be our mayor? So we are going to start this one with Bridget.
So I have said from the very beginning of this campaign, I will be glad to resign from my job to serve as mayor of Peoria and give it the full-time attention that it deserves, that the citizens deserve. I have never wavered on that. Peoria has had a full-time mayor. We need a full-time mayor. That's how we continue to heighten our relationships, our exposure, and focus on the things that we need to focus on to take the city into the future. I have never wavered on that, and I'm looking forward to serving as Peoria's full-time mayor.
Jason?
So I will be absolutely fully committed to this city 24/7. The difference is between myself and Bridget is Bridget has to quit her job because she's got a problem, because she is actually the executive director of the Cactus League.
False.
So not recusing yourself from votes for $29 million of upgrades isn't false.
Painful.
So the issue that we have in this city is we need somebody that's actually going to be fully committed to making a difference in the city's future. If it's a full-time job and you're talking about 2,000 hours a year, you're going to probably get about 3,000 to 4,000 hours out of it. Anybody that knows me knows that I doesn't have, or has been in my business, sees how I actually run my company. I don't have a seat at my desk, and there's a reason for that. Because as a leader, you've got to be a fully committed executive to actually make differences in this city, and I intend to do that.
Very good.
So yes, I want to respond to that. So there's a huge difference between running a business and running a city. Very different. We're in the forever business. And you're talking about your business, you're talking about your
You don't think my business is the forever business?
You'll get your time.
This is about serving people, not yourself.
Yeah.
This is about serving people. And it does require the full attention of an individual to lead the city into the future. I've done it. I did it for 7 years. I know exactly what it takes. And thinking otherwise is unrealistic.
Jason?
Also, false claims. Lots of false claims.
The forever business is my life. My job is to save every single life. In my business, every stitch matters, and every single thing that my company does brings people home. Whether it's a police officer on the street, like the female officer that was shot 7 weeks ago down in South Phoenix, she came home because of what we do for a living. The forever business is my business.
So Jason
Very
builds a
good.
good
That's
product.
fine. We've done rebuttals. We're going to kick it over to Taylor.
This reader question is, was the 2020 presidential election a free and fair election? Or do you believe the election was stolen from former President Trump?
And
Does that have to do
Bridget.
with the city of Peoria that passed?
Bridget.
Yes.
Free and fair?
Over is what it is. The election is over and we are moving on. And if we're moving on to 2024 and we have a president in place, the election has been certified, and we can continue to look at the past, but let's start to look ahead. That's where we are. Let's look ahead. And if there are issues to address moving forward, let's address them moving forward.
Thank you. Jason? No.
I think the real answer to this question is, or what the question really is about, is who is our president? And our president is Joe Biden.
The question is, was it a free and fair election?
I'm getting to that,
Okay.
but I appreciate it. Our president is Joe Biden. And the reason we know that is because we've got the worst economy since 1920. And we've got rising crime. And we've got rising inflation. And anybody that drove here knows exactly how much money we all spent. The difference is what are we actually going to, how are we actually going to take care of Peoria citizens? And that's the real focus. What we need to do is actually make sure that we have a focus on our city, that we actually take care in a thoughtful way of how we're actually going to run this city and how we're going to create economic jobs and economic prosperity for our citizens.
Thank you.
I
Bridget.
just want to say that one of the greatest responsibilities that we have as elected officials is transparency and accountability and providing reliable information to our citizens. Reliable, accurate, truthful information to our citizens. And I have heard so much misinformation in the previous questions, and we need to share the truth and focus on what's real as it relates to the needs of our city and serving the future of our city.
Wow.
Jason, you want to respond?
I'm good.
Okay. Good, because we don't have much time left, and I do want to talk about public safety. I got a lot of reader questions, a lot of audience questions, and I had questions about public safety. So I know there's, public safety, it comes up in every local election because, it's a primary duty of the city to provide, safety for its residents. It's a big cost in every single city budget. So what I did to prepare for these questions was to look at the FBI's Uniform Crime Report and I took a 10-year window because that gives you a good long stretch to understand what's been going on. So it does show, and there's so much you can say about crime stats, but I mean, you look at it overall crime, you can look at property crime, and you can look at violent crime. So when it comes to violent crime, the city has seen an increase in that 10-year period, which was 2010 to 2020. Most of that violent crime increase had to do with aggravated assaults, because those are by and large the biggest chunk of violent crimes that are out there. Thank goodness, way more of that than homicides, right? When it comes to property crime in that 10-year period, the city has seen a fairly dramatic drop. Let me just lay out homicides. Over the last 10 years, taking the average, it was 4 homicides in Peoria per year. It ebbed, it flowed. I don't know if many of you were here back in 2012 when we had the smoke shop shooting up on Lake Pleasant, but that was a particularly dangerous year for Peoria. There were 9 homicides. But then you see it trickle down to 2 and 3, and it's just an ebb and flow. But the average is 4. So my question to you, and let me also preface that for all those stats that I just talked about, please feel free to tell me what you think I missed or what you disagree with. But my bottom line is, I'm looking to understand whether you view Peoria as a safe city. And so, Bridget, we're going to you first.
So it isn't about anyone's view, it's about the facts. And Peoria is one of the safest cities in Arizona. It has been consistently. As population has gone up, crime has gone down. Calls for service have gone down. We do on average 55,000 911 calls in a year. Not once have we ever received any complaints on response times and service from our citizens. Currently, our police officers have more than half of their shifts available for proactive policing and being out in the community and being proactive to ensure that they're in front of it. There is so much technology in place and tools and investment that we've made in public service, in public safety, to make sure that we maintain low crime rates. Again, this is the key to my opponent's campaign, is public safety in the dire situation we're in. It's false information.
Jason.
False information.
I'd say tell that to the 2 officers that almost got killed yesterday. 8 inches is the difference that separated them between life and death. So tell that to them. You don't think that's true. That's awesome. You should ask them. The problem is we actually need to focus on what the future of our public safety is in the city of Peoria. Right now we have 1.1 officers per 1,000 citizens. The city of Glendale, it's an 18-foot difference between the crossing of the road of the center line between 67th Avenue or 75th Avenue. City of Glendale has 1.6 officers per 1,000 citizens. We have some of the slowest response times, almost 2 minutes slower than anybody else in the valley. 2 minutes. You have to ask yourself as a citizen, is that what you think we should be doing? Our citizens have complained about response times. In fact, we've had multiple registered, and it's been recorded over the years. The only times that this city actually focuses on public safety is when there's an election going on. And that's why I'm endorsed by literally every single major police organization in this state, as well as the first candidate or candidate for mayor to ever been endorsed by the National Border Patrol Council. Because we need to get in front of this, of what's going on, and not behind it.
Yeah.
This is false information. We have a police chief. We have a police chief that came here with a strategy to move the city into the future and support a plan to ensure that we are prepared for growth. And he's executed that plan. We have a pipeline of officers right now that is absolutely unheard of. Let me be clear. I live public safety. I'm married to public safety. I'm the mother of a firefighter and have been very close to law enforcement in my family as well. My opponent profits off of law enforcement, and he makes the equipment. He makes the equipment that he's using. It is those men and women that wear that equipment.
Okay, Jason, please, we've made it this far. Jason?
So my job is to save lives on a daily basis. And because of that, I've built a great business. Every single stitch that we've put in a vest is to save a life. For anybody to actually think that my job is to profit and primarily as a focus of the business of what we do, doesn't know me or doesn't know our business or any of our customers very well. It's why we're trusted by literally every single federal agency in this country. It's why we're trusted by U.S. Special Operations, foreign dignitaries, including the President of the United States that wears our vest today. It's not about profit, it's about life safety.
All right, so initially when I first approached the candidates, I said, let's do 90 minutes. And then I thought, there's just two of them, but wow, we're at time. So we are gonna go to Jason for a 90-second closing comments.
All right, thank you, Carrie. I want to thank you for all being here tonight. I want to acknowledge my wife, Jane, and my extended family. Your love and support is absolutely amazing, and it's very appreciated that you're all here. I would say the same thing to literally every single person that's been here in the room that supported me along the way of this campaign. Driving in here today felt absolutely amazing throughout that process, and it's been a joy to get to know a lot of you. As I've said, I'm a Christian conservative, and I go to a church right here in Peoria. I love living in Peoria. I'm grateful for everything that we have from this. I'm proud to be endorsed and receive the endorsements of Peoria Police Officer Association, the Arizona Police Officer Association with their 12,000 members, the National Border Patrol Council in their fight against fentanyl, the ASME Union, which is our city's largest union. I'm extremely thankful for that. And numerous elected officials, including the mayors of Glendale and Surprise. I'm so proud of the armor that we manufacture as a business, and we've talked about the saves and the things that we do on a daily basis. Peoria needs an outsider and a job creator to actually change the future of the city and actually drive the city to its future development. The Peoria citizens believe that. I truly, truly believe that. And the Peoria citizens deserve that. We can continue to elect the same people and have the worst emergency response times in the valley, or we can hire an outsider and a businessman that will actually change that. I personally believe that the choice is very clear, and I thank you, and I hope to get your vote.
Bridget.
Again, my name is Bridget Bensbacher. Thank you all for being here. I've lived and served in the Northwest Valley for decades. I'm married to John Bensbacher. He's a fire captain with Daisy Mountain Fire. We have 4 children that we've raised in the Peoria Unified School District. My oldest son is also a firefighter, and my youngest is interested in pursuing a career in public safety as well. We are a public safety family and understand the risks. We live the risks. The information that you are hearing from my opponent, it's not real. And it's irresponsible to instill false fear in our citizens and prey on vulnerable communities for personal gain. And that's what's happening here. I'm not a career politician. I've been serving for decades and will continue to do that. John and I have deep roots here. And again, my experience and my track record is evident and it's real. I've done the work and I have served, We are a well-run city with a AAA bond rating. You don't get that without having strong financial management practices. You don't get rated #1, this, that, and the other for needing to be changed or needing to be different. We are moving the right direction. We have unbelievable momentum, and I want to continue to take us beyond that. I am the only candidate with the necessary experience to hit the ground running and continue to lead this city and serve our citizens well.
No, thank you.
I'm
here to earn your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you all tonight for attending. Truly, I've spent my career in covering local government because it is so important. So, I mean, I regret we had to turn maybe a dozen away, but
Jason Beck! Jason Beck! Jason Beck!